Welcome to Educate for Life Online. This is the third class in our course, Created on Purpose or Evolved by Chance. Today we're going to be talking about dinosaurs and whether they support the creation account in the Bible or the theory of evolution. Let's get started.
I'm here today with Cam Muskelly from Duluth, Georgia, and we're going to talk about another one of the videos. This will be actually my 10th video in a series about Young Earth Creationist Kevin Conover's online course for Young Earth Creationists. And this is the third one on Did Man Walk with Dinosaurs? So Cam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Cam Muskelly. I'm an avocational paleontologist and geologist here in Georgia, and I particularly focus on the paleontology of Georgia, but I also focus on the historical geology and the paleontological record around the world. So I usually talk about the deep time geology and the historical geology aspect, and also focus on the paleontological record.
Awesome. Okay. All right, well, we're going to head right into the video then. We'll take a look at what Kevin Conover says and make some comments.
In Lima, Peru and Ica, Peru, there are tons of rocks that have carvings of dinosaurs on them. In 1535, the Spanish conquistadors mentioned there were stones with strange creatures carved on them found in this region of Peru. And there today, some of them are called the Nazca burial stones. A man who lives down there, Dr. Cabrera, has a museum. He's a medical doctor, and he's a professor at the university in Ica, and he has over 50,000 of these stones with dinosaur carvings on them. They've been uncovered since 1961. Here again, many of the rocks down there have all these gigantic stones with carvings all over them, not just of dinosaurs, but many other things too. But the interesting ones are all the ones that have dinosaurs on them. This looks like a man chopping off the head of a dinosaur. It also looks like his friend got eaten by the dinosaur. This right here has a guy stabbing one of the dinosaurs in the neck, what looks like a spear, and the dinosaur is biting his hat, it looks like. This one looks like a man is being bit by a dinosaur and maybe he's going off to heaven or something. This one right here, you can see the dermal frill. You see the circle patterns on the skin as well as all the other patterns. This is very common, and it looks like maybe they saw the skin and these were the patterns they saw on the skin. There it is again, the circle patterns in the skin. This is one has two dinosaurs fighting. Here's a triceratops, same kind of patterns in the skin. This is actual fossilized dinosaur skin. This was found in Bolivia. And here again is in the Cabrera Museum, people fighting with the dragons or dinosaurs. Here's a guy actually riding one of them. Maybe some of them were able to be tamed. This man appears to be petting a dinosaur. That's his friend. He's cuddling with it. They even have it on their pottery. They carve all kinds of dinosaurs on their pottery. You can see here. Down there, this is a mummy from Ica, Peru. Even their cloth, even their textiles have dinosaurs on them. A little bit hard to see here, but if you look closely, you can see dinosaurs. That's what it looks like.
All right, so what do you think of those Ica stones, Cam?
It's complete bullshit. That's what I think about them. The Ica stones have been known to be fakes for a very, very long time. And I like how it uses that depiction. Like the depictions on the Ica stones are not accurate depictions of dinosaurs whatsoever that we see from fossilized skeletons today.
Correct.
None of the depictions are accurate whatsoever to what we see as dinosaurs in museums and in the collections.
Well, the thing is that the original stones were discovered in 1535 and they were lost. There's no evidence that the original stones ever had any dinosaurs on them. No one knows today what they looked like. They took them back to Spain. They were lost. And then, all the ones that there may be some authentic ones. There may be some authentic Ica stones, but no one can tell if any of the authentic ones actually have dinosaurs on them.
Right.
And, the people admitted making them for the tourist trade. So definitely not evidence that people live with dinosaurs, evidence that stuff with dinosaurs on it sells is to tourists. But the other thing was, I'm really glad he showed the one about people riding dinosaurs, because I use that expression a lot. You believe the Earth is 6,000 years old and people rode dinosaurs. Young Earth creationists says, yeah, we don't believe that. Well, yeah, you teach it. So not only does Ken Ham show it in his book, Dinosaurs of Eden, he's got people with saddles riding dinosaurs. Yeah, not only that, but Kent Hovind does it with these Ica Stones, and so do many young Earth creationists like Kevin Conover.
In Venezuela, the Indians there told missionaries Adam Hutchison and Clint Vernoy about a giant bat that they feared greatly. They said it would capsize canoes and carry Indians off. According to the missionaries, Indians, terrified of this great bat, had sent their bravest men to the head of the river, where they killed one of the creatures years ago and buried it near the Muada River. When Clint showed the Indians a picture of a pterodactyl, their eyes got big as saucers and they said, "That is the bat." They positively identified this extinct dinosaur as the bat that lived just a few miles from their village. Even today, the Indians will not fish or drink from the river for fear of this creature.
So he talks about the large flying bat and how it's a depiction of a flying dinosaur. For the love of, it's not a dinosaur. Pterosaurs are flying reptiles. I even have a pterosaur, a replica of a pterosaur fossil. This is Pterodactylus antiquus. This comes from the Solhofen Formation in Germany, and it's from the late Jurassic. And people always used to say that that pterosaurs are dinosaurs. They're not dinosaurs. They're flying reptiles. So he talks about how dinosaurs and humans walk together, and he's mentioning animals that aren't even dinosaurs.
Well, again, dinosaurs are what they use to sell.
Right.
Children love dinosaurs. Ken Ham had to put dinosaurs in the Arca counter in cages because children want to see dinosaurs when they come, there. Kent Hovind has Dinosaur Adventureland, which interestingly enough really has not much in the way of dinosaurs at all. But they have to use that so they can put it on their billboards so they can lure in the children.
Yeah, kids love a dinosaur story.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to Central America. This is from the book Mystery in Acambaro, and according to this book, the dinosaurs there, they have dinosaur statues that range from 3 inches to 6 feet. They're made of ceramic, jade, stone, obsidian, and buried in a pit. It looks like they were trying to avoid them being captured by somebody, maybe the Spanish in the 1600s. There are 56,500 similar ceramic figures found in 1944 in Acambaro, Mexico. And this is what they look like.
Oh, nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. I can make that same particular figures in a pottery class for like 5 minutes. It's ridiculous. And again, not accurate description of what a dinosaur or any kind of sauropod, any ornithischian, saurischian kind of dinosaur looks like.
All right. Yeah. Actually, they admitted, the people that made these figures admitted using this comic book, Boy Commandos from 1947. If you look at a lot of the, and I've been trying to buy this darn thing, but they want $75 for it right now on Amazon and eBay. So I'm waiting for somebody to put one out that maybe isn't in as good a shape or something, but just to have. But yeah, you look at the dinosaurs depicted in the figures and they look a lot like these. And again, they're not anatomically correct. They're not really drawings of dinosaurs. They're drawings of some mythical beasts or whatever. Once again, they do show people riding them, which is good for me because I like to poke fun at them with that. But yeah, I mean, admitted fakes. Where they were buried, he talks about, they found them buried. Well, people went back and looked at that site and it was an obvious recent burial. They didn't show signs of being in the ground for a long time either. I mean, they looked like freshly made clay figures that were buried in the dirt, and dirt was piled on top of them. So not evidence at all that man walked with dinosaurs.
So much for your evidence.
What about in Africa? Now this right here is Roy Mackle. He died in September 2013. He was a University of Chicago professor. Also, Richard Greenwell, who is a co-founder of the International Society of Cryptozoology. He died in 2005 of cancer in Arizona. Both of these guys were interested in trying to figure out if there was actually a dinosaur down in the Congo. Richard Greenwell, when he went down to the swamp down there, said it was very difficult to get through the swamp. There were thousands and thousands of mosquitoes, very, very humid, hard to keep any of your equipment safe or to keep it from getting wet. So it's very difficult to get pictures. Remember, you're exploring a place that's the size of Florida. Okay, it's 80% unexplored. There's no roads, there's no restaurants, there's no shops where you can pick up batteries or repair your equipment. Anything you need to survive or to be able to take photos or videos, you've got to bring in yourself, and you've got to take it in a very short, you've got to find this dinosaur very quickly, so it's very difficult to find. So Mokele-mbembe, this is what the natives say it looks like, about this size, not too big. Remember, it's not going to be living as long now, and so it's not going to be able to grow as big as you might expect a dinosaur to in the past. Dr. Roy Mackle in this photo is holding a malumbo plant. According to the natives, this was the preferred food of the Mokele-mbembe. 43-year veteran missionary Eugene Thomas actually had 2 pygmies in his church in Congo, Africa that claimed to have killed a Mokele-mbembe in 1959. This gentleman, he was a biologist from the Congo, actually says he saw it in the swamp. That's a picture, he drew a picture of what he saw. And if you read the book Far Out Adventures, there's quite a few books written on this subject, dinosaur hunting in the Congo. A dinosaur-like beast was photographed during an African jungle expedition. This was a bunch of people that went down there from Pasadena and went on a trip to try and find it or photograph it. The creature was dark brownish in color. The skin appeared slick and smooth with a long neck and small head. Herman saw it, Kia saw it, and they saw it on several occasions, and they heard it making this tremendous roar. Many other members of the expedition, and this includes government officials from the Republic of Congo, saw it and heard it. Here's a full write-up on it. Half god, half beast, expedition set to track legendary mega lizard. And has all kinds of details on it. You can read that. And, you know, maybe that'll motivate you to go down there and look for it. I'd love to get a real good, solid video of this dinosaur. According to our guide, Pierre Sima, we were the first white men to actually penetrate the forest and swamps bordering the Bumba River. Our informants, almost all of them Baka pygmies, with the exception of one elderly Muslim Cameroonian, are perfectly familiar with all the known and unknown animals of the forest and swamps. While they do not regard the Mokele-mbembe as being an unusual animal, they do fear the creature because of its ferocity in attacking hippos, elephants, and even crocodiles. The animal appears to be completely intolerant of any other large creature that shares the river and controls large stretches of the river, particularly those areas where its food supply is present. Now that's from William Gibbons' website. He's also a cryptozoologist, and he actually was interviewed by the History Channel, and they actually videotaped him a little bit doing a documentary on trying to find this dinosaur, which I'll show you a quick clip from that in a second. The 2 suspected dinosaurians, Mokele-mbembe and Ngubu, are observed and encountered on a regular basis. I questioned an older Baka couple who work on Pierre's plantation. Like most pygmies, they were very familiar with the flora and fauna of the region. I presented them with our book on known African animals and dinosaur illustrations. About 98% of our dinosaur illustrations were rejected, except for 2, which they picked out without hesitation they had observed, a sauropod dinosaur and a triceratops. And that's William Gibbons there on the left there. And what I'm going to show you now is a clip from the History Channel with William Gibbons actually interviewing these people and showing them the dinosaur illustrations. Steve Ramondi, a student at LSU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and on the Kenya Olympic team, said that he had these animals in his village in Kenya, Africa. He said their favorite food was decaying human flesh. And there you have it, that book right there, Kongamado, The Last Flying Dragon. So people see flying dinosaurs as well as plesiosaurs, as well as sauropods, as well as triceratops. So there's all kinds of dinosaurs that people claim to have seen relatively recently.
The locals have virtually no contact with the outside world.
And what's so amazing about this is these people have nothing whatsoever to gain from telling stories because we don't pay them. They get no reward from us for doing this.
To help clarify their descriptions, Bill Gibbons has brought along a set of pictures. These will help determine if they are able to tell the difference between an elephant and a dinosaur.
they live in the forest, so they can easily find the difference between Mokele-mbembe and another type of animal.
While Gibbons flips the pages, their guide translates. They don't know a bear or deer, but when Gibbons flips the pages to the drawing of a dinosaur, eyes open and fingers point.
This is Mokele-mbembe, which they are. So this is how Mokele-mbembe look.
This technique is known to some in the scientific community as comparative observations.
Oh, like this.
Every time you talk about Mokele-mbembe to Bakas or to people who live around the river, they only describe it as animal with a long neck and a head like a snake.
This convinces Gibbons that the sightings are not a case of misidentification.
But we've come to the conclusion that this is definitely a different, unique animal in its own right. Okay.
This woman says she saw the animal while fishing with her husband.
The head was like a kind of snake, but it was very long, very long.
So the Mokele-mbembe story is absolutely ridiculous. He plays a video from Monster Quest, which I have seen before. I have a good friend of mine who's a cryptozoologist who has actually been on Monster Quest before, and he talks about some things that he may have seen in whatever. But the whole Mokele-mbembe thing is absolutely ridiculous. He talks about a gigantic sauropod, which the depictions that he uses are not an actual sauropod dinosaur. They look nothing like what he calls a brontosaurus, which is only known in North America. And it's absolutely ridiculous that he can. And what boggles me is that he uses these eyewitness accounts. Eyewitness accounts are probably the worst things that you could possibly use to convince somebody with evidence.
Well, another thing is, when I hear the word cryptozoologist, I mean, to me, that's a flag. You notice what he was doing with those tribe members there wasn't very scientific either. He's showing them all at the same time, these pictures. And then one of them points to something and says, yeah, that's it. And then the other ones come along and say, oh, yeah, that's it. I mean, if you were doing this in a controlled experiment or where you were actually asking them individually when the rest of them aren't around, to go through and pick it out, that's one thing. But when you're doing it as a group and they're walking up going, oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, that's it. Well, obviously it can be faked then. So right. It's not a scientific way of going about doing it.
What about dinosaurs in North America? Well, up in Canada, there is a monster called Ogopogo. This is a sign talking about Ogopogo. This is at Lake Okanagan. It says, before the unimaginative, practical white man came, the fearsome lake monster was well known to the primitive, superstitious Indians. His home was believed to be at a cave at Squally Point, and small animals were carried in the canoes to appease the serpent. Ogopogo still is seen each year, but now by white men. Now that sign's a little bit racist. I'm not sure how to feel about that sign. But whatever the case, our focus here is Ogopogo and the fact that many people claim to have seen him. They have books written about him. They have a gift shop that has lots of stuff regarding Ogopogo. And here's the lake. This is Lake Okanagan, and it's a very big lake, but lots of people over time have been able to see this creature. There have been newspaper articles written up about it. They even have greeting cards that have the lake monster on it there. If you're visiting there and you want to send something home to your family. Here's a newspaper article on it. This was from the Daily Courier. Creature shows up in sonar scan, and it mentions Ogopogo being 40 to 50 feet long. This woman here says she's seen Ogopogo twice. She says she carries her camera around with her all the time now, hoping to get a photo of it. And, it makes sense that people would have seen these if the Bible's true. Dinosaurs didn't go extinct millions of years ago. They went extinct recently, and there are still some out there swimming around, maybe in the swamps, walking around in areas where there's no people. And maybe you'll be the next person to take a photo of them.
Okay. Well, the Bible doesn't say anything about dinosaurs, actually. So, yeah. So, seeing these things doesn't make the Bible any more or less true. The interesting thing was not a single photograph. You know, I mean, people carry, now that people carry phones everywhere with them that take photographs, we're still not seeing more photographs of these animals. I mean, this woman says she's seen it twice. She's got a camera in her hand. No photographs. Yeah, no photographs. So.
I mean, it's like if you're going to, I mean, like we live in a digitized world where everything is, you know, can be photographed, everything can be recorded. If there was an actual dinosaur living in that particular spot, it would be all over the news. It would get so much press, and it's still 2019, and we still don't see a large tyrannosaur or a large, you know, sauropod dinosaur in roaming around in the jungle somewhere. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, as modern technology increases, the number of sightings have actually, it seems, gone down. You know, because people just aren't going to make that claim when they have nothing to back it up.
I mean, if anything, you can go to Photoshop. Perfect. Photoshop.
Right. There's a something I saw where it talks about the frequency of these types of sightings. You know, back when we had no cameras, then Polaroids, then Photoshop came along, and then now digital cameras. And, you know, I mean, you can see the spike, you know, during different times, you know, but yeah, now, I mean, we almost never see it because people have no excuse for not taking a photograph.
Yeah, that's true.
This is fossilized mummified dinosaur skin found with the upper limb bones of an Edmontosaurus, a hadrosaur. It was found in eastern Montana in the Hell Creek Formation. And this is amazing because it's not fossilized skin, it's mummified, which means it didn't all completely decay. They even found red blood cells inside some of the bones. In early 2009, scientists found a fossil of a duck-billed dinosaur that contained a host of soft tissue structures. This analysis of this fossil, done by multiple independent labs, concluded the fossil contained collagen, elastin, hemoglobin, and osteocytes. Now, what's the problem with that if you're an evolutionist? Well, if you believe dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, you should not be finding any soft tissue in dinosaur bones. And yet, if you're a creationist and you believe the biblical account, which says that 6,000 years ago, God made everything, including dinosaurs, and that dinosaurs have only gone extinct recently, well, it makes perfect sense that you would still find non-fossilized tissue inside dinosaur bones. This is at Utah.
Okay, so he just told us that there's fossilized, mummified dinosaur skin, and then the next sentence or two he says, and it's not fossilized.
He just himself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he can't even retain for a minute that that it is fossilized, mummified dinosaur skins, and then he turns around and says it's not fossilized. So, you know, it's really, really cool that we found that. But yeah, it was mummified before it became fossilized. And that's why it's preserved so well.
Like, not just that, but we find whole dinosaurs. Leonardo, the Brachylophosaurus that was discovered in Canada, it has tissues and has fossilized skin around its body. Like, a lot of scientists believe that this is, this is a little rare. And in some cases, it may be rare. But he also talks about how, okay, yeah, we have fossilized skin in a hadrosaur. But we also have fossilized tissues and things like from the Wheeler Shell Formation, which is in Utah, but we also find it in Precambrian material. We find it in the Burgess Shale. So soft tissue, we've known for a long time that soft tissue can fossilize. Fossilize some.
The Green River Formation, even the fish in there, all this dark matter that you find in between the bones is actually fossilized soft tissue. So, but it requires really specific conditions. Like Green River, those fish died. They sunk to the bottom of the lake. It was anoxic conditions, so there was no oxygen and no bacteria to break it down. And when we do find things like that, it has to happen under very specific conditions. So we've known about it for a long time, but it's still pretty rare outside of certain formations.
Very slow in specific conditions. So like I said, you can't have it in a large, flat, fast-flowing river. You need a lake deposit in order to have that preserved very well.
This one, this is a Green River fossil that I prep myself. Now I just wet it down a tiny bit there to show, but all that dark matter that you're seeing, in the fossil here is actually preserved soft tissue. So here's a really cool one I just wanted to show. You don't see this all that often. You'll find them, but a small school of fish that died.
Oh, yeah.
So I got several little ones on the same plate here. This is an amazing book. So The Lost World of Fossil Lake, a great book on the topic. And it goes into real detail about the annual varves, whether or not they're annual. And it also goes into a lot of detail on how the fossils were preserved and how the soft tissue was preserved.
I've got a fossilized bird feather from the Green River.
What?
A bird feather from the Green River Formation.
Oh, you do? Wow, that's amazing. So it's hard to get stuff that's not fish.
Yeah.
You've got to buy it. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's see here. We can probably move on. I think he gets into Schweitzer pretty quick here. Oops. Screen share.
Do they even know that Schweitzer used to be a young Earth creationist?
Yeah, she used to be. And then let's see what his clip says on it. But she used to be a young Earth creationist. She set out to, with an open mind, though. I mean, when she became a paleontologist and wanted to become a paleontologist and was convinced by the evidence that it was wrong. So let's see here what we can. She talks about that. Did you ever watch that Hangout?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with Paula Gia and I think Steve McRae and oops, wrong screen. I was kind of pissed because I had some questions I wanted to ask her and I give them to Steve in advance. And then he let other people ask questions that they hadn't submitted to him and they were asking my questions. So I got towards the end, I'm like, damn it, Steve. All right. Okay, I'm screen sharing now. Full screen.
Which means it didn't all completely decay. They even found red blood cells inside some of the bones. In early 2009, scientists found a fossil of a duck-billed dinosaur that contained a host of soft tissue structures. This analysis of this fossil, done by multiple independent labs, concluded the fossil contained collagen, elastin, hemoglobin, and osteocytes. Now, what's the problem with that if you're an evolutionist? Well, if you believe dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, you should not be finding any soft tissue in dinosaur bones. And yet, if you're a creationist and you believe the biblical account, which says that 6,000 years ago, God made everything, including dinosaurs, and that dinosaurs have only gone extinct recently, well, it makes perfect sense that you would still find non-fossilized tissue inside dinosaur bones. This is at Utah in the Black Dragon Wash. This is a pteranodon drawing on the walls.
Really? I can't tell.
It's kind of a zoom in of it.
Oh, and
really? That's an actual pteranodon
now, how
bone.
does it look anything like a freaking pteranodon to you?
Like what they were trying to draw. The Thunderbird, also a very interesting story about a bird that looks a lot like a pteranodon or a pterodactyl. This is the Nanazi prayer stick in Cliff Dwellings Museum, Manitou Springs in Colorado. Why would they put the head of a pterodactyl on top of a prayer stick if they had never seen an actual pterodactyl? Right? The Thunderbird, that actually comes from a giant bird. When it flapped its wings, it sounded like
birds, though.
Explorers who were traveling down the Mississippi in 1675 stopped in Alton, Illinois, and there they saw the Piasa bird painted on the cliff. When they asked what it was, they were told that it was a giant bird that used to kill and eat people, but the chief killed it using a plan the Great Spirit gave to him. Now, this is the Piasa bird carved on the cliff, some sort of a giant creature that was very dangerous.
Like a pterosaur.
And they used to have this plaque up on the Mississippi River, but it was removed.
Come on.
But if you look inside their phone book, there's all kinds of mentions to this Piasa bird, some sort of a giant dinosaur-like creature.
Pterosaurs are dinosaurs, goddammit.
These are Indian pictographs from the Grand Canyon. This was
oh God, here we go.
found in the Grand Canyon, and people have taken photos of it. A group actually went on an expedition down to the Grand Canyon to check out this dinosaur drawing. And one of the people was quoted as saying, "The fact that some prehistoric man made a pictograph of a dinosaur on the walls of the canyon upsets completely all of our theories regarding the antiquity of man." Now, what's his point? His point is this: well, we didn't expect there to be men drawing dinosaurs because they would have had to see the dinosaurs in order to draw them. And so, again, that messes up all of evolutionary theory. The black dragon wash. This is a pteranodon drawing on the walls. And there you have it. It's kind of a zoom in of it. And you can see that's actual pteranodon bones there. And you can see what it looks like and what they were trying to draw. The thunderbird, also a very interesting story about a bird that looks a lot like a pteranodon or a pterodactyl. This is an Anazi prayer stick in Cliff Dwellings Museum, Manitou Springs in Colorado. Why would they put the head of a pterodactyl on top of a prayer stick if they had never seen an actual pterodactyl? Right? The thunderbird, that actually comes from a giant bird. When it flapped its wings, it sounded like thunder. Explorers who were traveling down the Mississippi in 1675 stopped in Alton, Illinois, and there they saw the piasa bird painted on the cliff. When they asked the Indians what it was, they were told that it was a giant bird that used to kill and eat people, but the chief killed it using a plan the Great Spirit gave to him. Now, this is the piasa bird carved on the cliff, some sort of a giant creature that was very dangerous. And they used to have this plaque up on the Mississippi River, but it was removed. But if you look inside their phone book, there's all kinds of mentions to this piasa bird, some sort of a giant dinosaur-like creature. These are Indian pictographs from the Grand Canyon. This was found in the Grand Canyon, and people have taken photos of it. A group actually went on an expedition down to the Grand Canyon to check out this dinosaur drawing. And one of the people was quoted as saying, "The fact that some prehistoric man made a pictograph of a dinosaur on the walls of the canyon upsets completely all of our theories regarding the antiquity of man." Now, what's his point? His point is this: well, we didn't expect there to be men drawing dinosaurs because they would have had to see the dinosaurs in order to draw them. And so, again, that messes up all of evolutionary theory.
Okay, so the Piazza Insurance Agency and Piazza Paint Supply are evidence that people live with dinosaurs.
And again, not a dinosaur. He always mixes up pterosaurs and dinosaurs. Pterosaurs are not dinosaurs. He won't seem to understand that.
So do you think the Piazza looked anything like a dinosaur?
It looked nothing like a dinosaur.
Or even a pterosaur. I mean, anything like a pterosaur.
It looks like an eagle.
It looks like some kind of lizard with a Viking head or something.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it was. I mean, I got to admit, that was a new one for me. I mean, Kevin Conover does come up with some new stuff every now and then. I mean, I'm sure he got it from somewhere else, but right. he pulls up some really obscure things, usually from websites like Genesis Park or something like that have the real outlandish stuff.
Yeah.
So
yes. I had a conversation with a guy on Facebook who mentioned very similar things, and he talked about, he's actually sent a link of Genesis Park. I was actually showing him descriptions of an actual dinosaur accurately, and then I was comparing it to his ridiculous depictions of what he claims to be dinosaurs on caves. And and then he sends a link of Genesis Park, and I'm like, of course you're gonna send this ridiculous nonsense. Why?
It's the best I got.
Yeah, what you got? I like how he talks about it destroys evolutionary theory. No, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, okay. Even if we did find real depictions of dinosaurs, that wouldn't destroy evolutionary theory. Evolution would still be true. It is the basis in the understanding of the biodiversity of life. Evolution would still be true. Like, he doesn't understand that either.
Here's another dinosaur drawing, Natural Bridges State Park in Blanding, Utah. Pteroglyphs by the Anazi. You can see it there. Big tail, legs, head. Here's another one. This is from Lake Superior Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada. You can see the dermal frill on this dinosaur-like creature. There's another picture of it from a different angle. You know, in Arizona, there are over 200 dinosaur tracks on a Navajo Indian reservation. You can actually go there and visit it and see it. It's the largest group of dinosaur tracks in North America. And not only are there dinosaur tracks, but there are actually human footprints with these dinosaur tracks. And this demonstrates that dinosaurs and humans lived at the same time.
That's hilarious.
I know. So this is what the enhanced version, which they admit is enhanced on the left, looks like, the outline of it and everything. There was a study done a few years ago where people just actually went and looked at it, you know, how it was drawn, different things that it was drawn with. I mean, it's actually made out of different materials. So it's actually 3 different drawings that were made at different times. Could be abstract, could be a snake, whatever, but it really looks nothing like it at all. At the time this came out, I remember there was one creationist organization, it might have been creation.com or somebody actually retracted it, and I think they were adding it to their list of things that creationists shouldn't use. Every single one of the other organizations still uses it. They don't care. It's been debunked. It's 3 different drawings. It doesn't matter to them. As far as the tracks in Arizona goes, you know, I've been up to see those. Yeah, there's no human tracks ever found anywhere in Arizona, or even anything that looks like human tracks up in northern Arizona where those 200 dinosaur tracks were found. Incidentally, you know, I've found 94 sets of 270 million year old pre-dinosaur mammal-like reptile tracks in Arizona here, totaling over 1,000 tracks. And never found anything that looks like a human track near those either. So
I found some amphibian tracks in the Stephen C. Meekin fossil site in Alabama.
Very cool.
2016, and no human tracks. And this is older than Carboniferous.
What do those date to? Do you know roughly? Or
those date to about 310 million years old.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's cool. I was in New Mexico just about a month ago and went to the research facility at the New Mexico Museum of Natural History there, and I got to look through all the tracks. I mean, I literally spent 2 days there. I think you saw some of the pictures I posted on Facebook where, I mean, I was looking through some amazing tracks from all over the country that dated, you know, anywhere from dinosaur stuff, you know, at 66, 67 million years up to, you know, very old, you know, again, over 300 million years old. So
not too long ago, Mary Schweitzer, a paleontologist, dug up a Tyrannosaurus rex bone, and the T-Rex bone was so big they had to cut it in order to transport it. When they cut it open, what they noticed was it looked like soft tissue was inside the T-Rex bone. Now, if you were to visit the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, you would see a Tyrannosaurus rex exhibit. But on the exhibit sign, it says that this Tyrannosaurus rex went extinct 65 million years ago along with all the other dinosaurs. But how in the world can red blood cells last 65 million years? How could they last even 1 million years? How could they even last 100,000 years? And yet there they are inside that bone. Which does this fit better with? The biblical hypothesis that dinosaurs were created 6,000 years ago and went extinct recently? Or the evolutionary hypothesis that dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago? Watch this quick documentary from 60 Minutes on Mary Schweitzer, who found the red blood cells inside the T-Rex bone.
What happened next happened by mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral. But the acid worked too fast and all the mineral dissolved away. Being a fossil, there should have been nothing left. But there was, and it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
No. She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone. This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
So you see this and you think, what?
I didn't want to tell anybody.
You'd be ridiculed,
yes.
right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet, in sample after sample, they were there. things that look suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. She finally mustered the courage to tell Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, you know, I was like shocked. I mean,
How could that be?
How could that be? That's right.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
Look at that.
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science, that organic material can't possibly survive even 1 million years, let alone 68 million. Mary, Jack, and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime. But as Mary showed us, she's been able to replicate her findings. These are pieces of an even older dinosaur, a well-preserved 80-million-year-old duckbill. When she dissolved it away in acid...
Let's put this under the scope here.
Well, look.
Is that a blood vessel?
This is a blood vessel.
You're
You
kidding.
see the branches right there? And look at all of them. And it's so consistent over and over and over again. We do this bone and it comes out and I get excited every time. I can't help it. I mean, 80 million years old.
Mary published her new results last year, and while some of her critics have been swayed, the controversy still rages, and the stakes are high. If blood vessels can survive 80 million years, what about DNA?
Now, what's the problem with her claim? You see, here's the problem. She has all the evidence in front of her that the Bible is true, that the biblical hypothesis is true, but instead of going with the evidence, what she does is take her paradigm, she takes her 65 million years ago paradigm, and she pushes it on the data. So rather than accepting that dinosaurs went extinct recently, she says, how is it possible? We've got to figure out how it's possible that red blood cells could last 65 million years old or 68 million years old. And so now there's all this research being done trying to prove that red blood cells can last 65 million years.
Okay, so Dr. Mary Schweitzer, we knew that was going to come along. And, you know, she used to be a young earth creationist. Cam and I were talking earlier, and he pointed that out. You know, but she was swayed by the evidence. She started off as a young earth creationist, interested in paleontology and geology, started studying, you know, went to school and got her degree, and then, you know, was convinced by the evidence that the earth was old.
And she's still a religious. I believe she's a Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah, she considers herself definitely religious, you know. She just doesn't believe the earth was 6,000 years old and people rode dinosaurs.
Like the majority of moderate Christians out there today.
Mm-hmm. So on my website, I have a page that's called Dinosaur Soft Tissue Has Been Explained. This is at creationsciencefiction.com. And it lists several of the studies that back up Dr. Schweitzer's hypothesis that iron from hemoglobin actually is the preservative for this dinosaur soft tissue. And if you notice, she dissolved the minerals in acid. They kind of almost skip over that part in the documentary, but I mean, you know, he talked about them cutting up the bone and finding soft tissue.
Right.
And soft tissue is a type of tissue. It's not the physical state that it was found in. It wasn't found soft and stretchy. It was found mineralized, hard as rock, inside permineralized, fossilized bone. So once something like that has been preserved, and she showed in her experiments in the lab, it only takes a matter of weeks to reach a state of preservation. Once it's reached a state of preservation, and then it's encased in bone, the bone becomes fossilized, basically like rock. It's like a time capsule. I mean, I don't know, unless there's, you know, it gets busted or extreme environmental conditions, nothing's going to permeate that fossilized bone and get at that preserved soft tissue, which has been mineralized. And how does it become preserved before it becomes mineralized is from the iron and hemoglobin. And there's actually been, I believe, 5 now independent studies done by different scientists around the world that back up her hypothesis. I list 4 of them here on my website. 247 million-year-old reptile tissue preserved by iron and hemoglobin. So I mean, in every case where we find these really good preserved soft tissue from dinosaurs, in every case that I know of, we also find the presence of iron.
And he's thinking about it like we find the dinosaur all bloodied up and guts are spilling all over the place. That's
right. Yeah, they picture it, or they describe it as raw steak almost, you know.
Right. Like roadkill.
Yep. I'm going to show a clip here now. I was in a discussion with Dr. Schweitzer myself on a different YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that in this video description. But here was where Paul Enns from Paulogia channel, excellent channel, asked Mary a question, and her answer. You know, she gets really upset when young Earth creationists hijack her work.
So I was recently in a Young Earth seminar where your research was used to support claims that working blood vessels, fresh blood cells, and intact DNA had been found in dinosaur cells or dinosaur fossils. Is that a fair characterization of your research?
It's wrong on all counts. If these guys would take half the energy that they spend trying to prove that the world is young and use it to change the world around them, feed the hungry, take care of the kids, get the cats off the street, anything, that our world would be so much better. But they waste so much time and energy and effort on disproving that the world is old.
In Monterey, California in 1925, this thing washed up on the beach. What is that thing? It's no known creature. It's not a whale. It's not an octopus. What is it? Well, it looks like some sort of a plesiosaurus. There it is again. It has a huge neck, 20 feet long. This was written up in the magazine Skin Diver in 1989. It says, "My examination of the monster was quite thorough. It had no teeth, its head is large, and its neck fully 20 feet long. The body is weak, and the tail is only 3 feet in length from the end of the backbone. With a bill like it possesses, it must have lived on herbage and undoubtedly inhabited a swamp. I would call it a type of plesiosaurus." Another witness, Judge Springer of Santa Cruz, felt the creature was from a prehistoric age. He added his observation, evidence of 2 short feet, or flippers, and probably swam with its head high above the water. There's a plesiosaurus. You've got a chronosaur and a elasmosaur, but most likely that's what it was, some sort of a plesiosaur. People have said, oh, maybe it was some sort of a whale. But the problem is there's no neck on a whale. People will do whatever they can to try to avoid the truth that the Bible is true. What we want to do is allow the Bible to speak for itself. We don't want to impose our ideas on the Bible. Oftentimes science gets it wrong, but the Bible never gets it wrong. So let's go with the Bible rather than what fallible people and fallible scientists conclude about evidence when they weren't there, right? They weren't there to see that. In Pensacola, Florida, there was a story. Brian McCleary was one of 5 teens scuba diving off of Pensacola Harbor. He said this: "We were in an Air Force rescue raft bound for a sunken ship a few miles off the coast. Midway out, we were caught in a storm and dragged out to sea. When the storm cleared, we were in a dense fog. We began to hear strange noises, rather like the splashing of a porpoise, and a sickening odor like that of dead fish. The noise got closer to the raft, and it was then we heard a loud hissing sound. Out in the fog, we saw what looked like a long pole about 10 feet high sticking straight up out of the water. On top was a bulb-like structure. It bent in the middle and went under. It appeared several more times, getting closer to the raft. The silence was broken once again by something out of the fog. I can only describe it as a high-pitched whine. We panicked. All 5 of us put on our fins and went into the water. 'Keep together and try for the ship,' I yelled. After we were in the water, we became split up in the fog. From behind, I could hear the screams of my comrades one by one. I got a closer look at the thing just before my last friend went under. The neck was about 12 feet long, brownish green, and smooth looking. The head was like that of a sea turtle, except more elongated with teeth. There appeared to be what looked like a dorsal fin when it dove under for the last time. Also, as best I am able to recall, the eyes were green with oval pupils." Now, this young man, okay, his father was in the military. He had a rescue raft. They were all going to go just have fun, go out, go scuba diving. And, you know, often off the coast, cities will sink ships because those ships become places where you can dive. So it sounds like what was happening here was they were in this raft. They were going to try to get to the ship. Part of the ship was sticking out of the water. And when this creature came up on them. Now, in another book, Mysteries of the Great Deep, there's additional details to his story. So this is a second telling of his story. He says, I don't know how long it was before we heard a scream. It lasted maybe half a minute. Then I heard Warren call, hey, help me, it's got Brad, I've got to get out of here. His voice was cut off abruptly by a short cry. Brad, Warren, hey, where is everybody? I yelled back at the top of my lungs. Larry now swam with Eric and me. Warren and Brad were nowhere in sight. Right next to Eric, that telephone pole-like figure broke water. I could see the long neck and two small eyes. The mouth opened and it bent over. It dove on top of Eric, dragging him under. I screamed and began to swim past the ship. My insides were shaking uncontrollably. Very sad, but basically he was the only person that survived out of all 5 of them. I finally made it to the ship, the top of which protruded from the water, and stayed there for most of the night. Early that morning I swam to shore and was found by the rescue unit. And this is recorded, you know, this was in the news. All kinds of people were all over this. And here's the question, you know, I've heard some people say, well, maybe he wanted to kill his friends. Well, how much sense does that make? So let's say this guy, Edward, really did kill his friends. And he's got to come up with an alibi in court about what happened. You know, he could have come up with lots of things, like his friends got lost at sea from the storm. He could have said his friends got eaten by a shark. He could have said all these other things. But if you were going to come up with a good alibi, why would you come up with, my friends got eaten by a dinosaur? That makes no sense. And so clearly this guy is telling the truth. This really happened. He really saw a dinosaur. And sadly, his friends were actually eaten by a dinosaur. You know, all over the world we have these stories. And yet evolutionists want to tell us nobody has ever seen a live dinosaur.
What the heck? Well, here again, he came up with something new.
My God.
One argument I've never heard a creationist use before. The teenager has to be telling the truth, because who would make up a story like that? I'm convinced.
Wow.
I'll see you in church this Sunday, Cam.
Wow. I'll see you in church too. Praise the Lord. Wow. I mean, everything that he just said there was just complete and utter horseshit. And again, he still doesn't get the notion that plesiosaurs are not dinosaurs.
Well, even so, even if they were alive today, if we found some sea creature that resembled them, it wouldn't make evolution wrong. It wouldn't mean the Earth isn't billions of years old. It would just mean we found a new creature that we hadn't found before.
Like, he thinks that all of this somehow disproves evolution. He doesn't understand what evolution is. He doesn't understand the mechanisms behind that particular subject. He doesn't understand anything. And he's, again, going off of eyewitness accounts.
I'm going to research that book, because I've never heard of this before. I'm just going to Google that book, and before I publish this, I'll probably post a little update in there on it, but that was crazy. That was nuts. Right?
He's gone off on a complete another level of stupid.
Well, I think he's going to wrap up his video here on dinosaurs, his lesson. This is a course, remember. This is an online course for young Earth creationism. So let me go ahead and play the end of his video here.
Kids are often start reading about dinosaurs, and very early on they start reading books about dinosaurs. Here's one. It says, I can read about prehistoric animals. And then you open it, and there on the page it says, millions of years ago, dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals lived on Earth. And millions of years ago, and what they're saying there is the Bible's not true, because the Bible doesn't say this happened millions of years ago. It says it happens recently. We got to be really careful about what we read, because indoctrinating starts very young. And indoctrinating is teaching something uncritically. Here's even in Dr. Seuss. It says not hundreds of years, not thousands of years, but millions of years long before you were born, dinosaurs roamed the earth. And yet, that's not true. That's not what the Bible teaches. Satan couldn't fool Adam about the dinosaurs. He named them. When Satan walked up to Adam and said, hey, Adam, did you know that dinosaurs went extinct millions of years ago? Adam said, please, walk away. I just named the dinosaurs. Satan said, darn. And he thought, I'll have to wait till a little bit later. So he walked up to Noah and he said, Noah, did you know dinosaurs went extinct millions of years ago? Noah said, no, that's not true. I feed them every day. I saw God bring them on the ark. Satan said, darn. Said, I'll have to wait till a little bit later. Well, around 4,000 years passed. most of the dinosaurs died off or were killed by man. And so Satan walked up to Darwin and he said, "Hey Darwin, did you know that dinosaurs went extinct millions of years ago?" And Darwin said, "Wow, that makes perfect sense. That fits exactly with my theory of evolution." And Lyell, who's the father of uniformitarian geology, said, "Yes, that's exactly right. This will be perfect to prove that the Bible's not true." And many people today have fallen for this lie that Satan has given over, right? And said dinosaurs went extinct millions of years ago. But we have evidence all over the earth that dinosaurs went extinct recently. We have dinosaurs on cave walls. We have dinosaurs on rocks. We have dinosaurs with red blood cells in them. We have people who even claim that they've seen people eaten by dinosaurs. We have people that have seen dinosaurs in lakes all over the world. We have towns and cities named after dinosaurs. We have dinosaurs carved on people's graves. We have dinosaurs on all kinds of archaeology and architecture. The evidence is overwhelming that the Bible's theory, that the Bible's historical record about dinosaurs is true. My hope is that you decide to believe the Bible instead of people that weren't there, who don't believe the Bible and don't trust God. You can put your hope in God's Word, not only when it comes to dinosaurs, but when it comes to Jesus Christ, salvation, and the hope of eternal life. We're going to move on to class 104 next. I hope you really enjoyed this class. The next one's going to be just as fun and exciting. See you soon.
Of course, it's supposed to be educational. Oh my God. Oh wow. Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, what, I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist, but I don't know what must they think when he talks about a children's book saying millions of years disproves the Bible or goes against what the Bible says, because the Bible says nothing about the age of the earth.
The Bible says nothing about the age of the earth because it wasn't written in a time when that particular thing was being constructed. Like geology is actually a very old science, and it's probably one of the oldest sciences if I'm not mistaken. And there were people that didn't understand evolution. Evolution wasn't even a thing, and Christians actually went out to look for evidence of a young Earth, but actually found out that the Earth was actually billions or millions of years old. And then because of that, we get things like, oh, this particular rock unit is 300 million years old because of the fossils that are in it. He doesn't understand any of that nonsense. And he thinks millions of years is just, it's just something that the devil made up. Oh, there you go.
The really sad thing is he's teaching these children. He's a high school teacher, but I mean, this is, he teaches at a Christian high school. So I know he's teaching them probably the same thing that he's teaching, in this online course. And he's teaching these children that they have to, if they accept millions of years, they have to reject the Bible. He's not only claiming that that's it, he's teaching them that. And so, that's why young earth creationists are doing so much to drive people from the church. And studies show that, that children grow up, they're going to leave and go to college, some of these kids, and they're going to really be presented for maybe the first time in their lives that evidence that the earth is billions of years old. But they're going to think, if I accept this, I have to reject my religion. So some will reject it based on that. I mean, they'll reject the age of the earth, the actual age of the earth. Other ones are going to reject their religion and go with what the evidence shows. And he's setting them up for that.
Imagine a young earth creationist sitting in a geology or a paleontology 101 course. They're definitely not ready for what's about to happen to them.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean,
he talked about humans. We know that humans and dinosaurs live together because of the paintings and because of this. Okay, can you actually please go out to the Morrison Formation, to the Hell Creek Formation, to the Arundel Clay Formation, and find a human fossil with a dinosaur skeleton or dinosaur fossil right next beside it? You can't do that. If there was actual evidence for that, you would actually find any human fossils in Mesozoic age deposits. You don't.
Correct. We've never found a human fossil originating from the same layer as where we find dinosaur fossils. Now, there's been a couple instances where fossils from different layers have gotten mixed. you know, because of erosion. I think there's one down there in North Carolina, you know, what do they call this? But we're actually, you know, we've got mixed fossils from Ice Age all the way back to dinosaurs.
Yeah, in Texas you've got some Cretaceous material, and you could find maybe a horse fossil.
Yeah,
that's the material it was deposited in a lag deposit, and they've been mixed together.
Right. Well, I know in some of these, you know, the upper layers have eroded away, and so the sediment's gone, and it deposits the fossils onto that lower layer, and that's how they get mixed together. But we've never found them originating from the same layer, which is an important thing. So also, you know, paintings and things like that are not evidence, because, you know, look at Egypt. Okay, Egypt, you know, we've got jackal-headed people walking around. I mean, you know, they're gods. They're painted all over Egypt on pyramids and other things. Are creationists going to say that's evidence that they existed? No. People were around at that time. We know that they're depicting different things. You know, people had imaginations back then, just like they have imaginations today. And, you know, because we see something that he interprets or assumes it looks like a dinosaur, doesn't even mean that that person saw a dinosaur or meant it to even look like a dinosaur.
And he uses the old Ken Ham, were you there? Were you there? And it's it's like, that's probably one of the most annoying things, because, okay, were you there during the Egyptian times? Were you there when Noah's flood happened? Which it didn't. But were you there when the Bible was written? No. So you weren't there either. But we have the evidence. We can use the evidence around us to reconstruct the history of life on this planet. It's not, we don't have to be there to understand what happened. We have the evidence to tells us that what happened. And none of the things that are recorded in the geological and paleontological record is evidence or shows that the biblical flood or whatever he wants to talk about or the creation story is true. You're not looking at the evidence in a correct way. You're just, I want my Bible to be true, and so I'm going to make up whatever the kind of crap I want to make up to only fit what's in my Bible and not look at anything else.
Well, that's what happens when you start with your conclusion and you don't look at it objectively, for sure.
Exactly.
So, hey, Cam, tell me about, you volunteer too, don't you? Tell me about what you do as a volunteer.
I volunteer at the Fernbank Science Center. So on a few Saturdays, I go to the Fernbank Science Center here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I teach paleontology. I usually bring out my fossil collection and I teach people about real paleontology, how we find the fossils, cataloging the fossils. And I don't only do fossils, but I also teach about geology. I've got a great rock collection as well. And so I bring rock samples and I talk about how rocks are formed, you know, the basics of geology. And so I do that maybe 2 Saturdays a month, and it's great. People love it. They're always excited when I go into the Fernbank Museum and in the Fernbank Science Center, and I have fossils for people to show, because, you know, people people love to think as, you know, fossils are these hidden things that are encased in a museum glass. But, you know, these are fossils, like a kid can go up and touch a Triceratops skull fragment. And, you know, it's really good to have that, you know, on touch and on-site experience where fossils are on the table for you to look at and touch, and they're not hidden behind a glass.
Exactly. I think that's awesome. It's awesome what you do, and appreciate it. Hey, have you ever heard of Curiosity Stream?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you send me your email when we're done here, and I'm going to send you a 1-year subscription to HD Curiosity Stream. There's a lot of good documentaries on there that you don't find other places. They've got some original stuff too. And I just really appreciate what you're doing. I'm a volunteer myself. I volunteer at our local museum and teach children on human origins. So I want to thank you again for joining me here today. This has been awesome. We need to do this again sometime. What's the name of your YouTube channel? I know you've just started, but what's the name of the channel?
My YouTube channel is called Paleo 101.
Okay.
I teach subjects. I talk about things from geology to paleontology to my personal experiences.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys haven't done that, check that out. I know I follow Cam on Facebook. He's friends with some of the most amazing and brilliant geologists and paleontologists around the country, which is really cool. Get a lot of good feedback on stuff that he posts on his Facebook page too.
Tomorrow I'll be leaving for the Geological Society of America presenting. So
Awesome.
I'll be
What are
posting
you?
pictures on
What
there.
is your presentation there?
Say that again.
What is your presentation going to be on there?
It's going to be on Time Scavengers. I'm actually part of a website called Time Scavengers, and we talk about evolution. We talk about climate change. We talk about basic subjects in paleontology and geology. And so we've collected the data and how Time Scavengers has been interacting with social media. And so that's going to be what our poster's about.
Yeah, thanks again for joining me, and hope to work with you again soon. And I really appreciate all you're doing there. And
thank you very much, Bill. Greatly appreciate it.